In a pushrod engine, the camshaft is located, as we've just seen, above the crankshaft. It opens and closes the valves with a system of lifters, rods, and rocker arms. In the more modern overhead camshaft configuration, the camshaft sits on top of the cylinders, moving the valves directly. Building the Nascar engine continues with the installation of this aluminum motor plate, by which mechanics will mount the engine in the car. Next, the timing belt, which links the camshaft to the crankshaft, ensuring they turn in sync and maintain the correct timing. At the core of the belt is a woven material that's 5 times stronger than steel. Other technicians use a gauge to measure how much force it takes to compress the valve springs. This quality control check ensures that spring tension is within a specific range. Each cylinder has an intake valve and an exhaust valve. Technicians use a compression tool to squeeze a spring over each one. Then they secure the spring with a locking clip. The valves are located in the top section of the engine, called the cylinder head, which technicians now bolt onto the engine block. Next, they assemble the pushrod system, by which the camshaft opens and closes the valves. First, rocker stands, then pushrods. These insert into lifters, which connect to the camshaft. And finally, rocker arms. One end of each arm goes on the pushrod, the other sits on the valve. When the camshaft turns, the system opens and closes the valves. Technicians close up the cylinder head with a valve cover. Next, they install the engine cooling system, starting with the water manifold. After mounting a cover to protect the cam belt from rocks and other debris, they install the water pump. It circulates cold water through the engine to prevent overheating. Having absorbed the heat, the water exits the engine via the manifold, then travels to the radiator, which cools it back down. Then the pump, driven by this pulley, sends the water back into the engine to repeat the cycle. Next, technicians mount the alternator. It generates electricity to run the engine and other components, such as the air conditioning, the dashboard gauges, and fans, which cool the brakes, tires, and rear end. This belt drives both the alternator and the water pump pulley. Next, technicians install the oil pump. It sucks hot oil out of the engine, sends it to the oil radiator for cooling, then pumps it back into the engine. Now the distributor. It sends electricity from the alternator-charged car battery to the spark plugs. The spark plugs fire, igniting the fuel and air mixture in each cylinder, producing a mini explosion that drives the piston. This component, the intake manifold, feeds the air and fuel mixture to the cylinder intake valves. The carburetor regulates the mixture ratio by metering the right amount of fuel to the amount of air coming in. Technicians install the numerous parts that make up the clutch. Next, the starter ring, which engages with the starter to fire up the engine. Finally, they mount the bell housing, a cover that protects the clutch from debris and connects the engine to the transmission. The factory hooks up every engine it produces to a testing machine. The machine starts up and runs the motor, analyzing some 300 performance criteria, from revolutions per minute to fuel flow. At the same time, 3 remote-controlled cameras shooting from different angles enable technicians to zoom in and view on a monitor anything they need to visually inspect. All this to ensure the engine they've built will have a winning track record.